psychological explanations of offending, talking about differential association theory. Big overarching question, is criminal behaviour learnt? So this is Edwin Sutherland in the 20s. He asked the question, why do some people become criminals and others don't? Regardless of race, class or ethnic background, what makes an offender? For him, he was very interested in the behaviourist principles of Skinner and Pavlov and the social learning of Bandura. And so for him, crime, he depicted, is learned. So there are two ways in which people learn crime: attitudes towards it, what is and isn't acceptable, and the learned specific acts, how to actually carry out criminal offence. So our key ideas, those learned attitudes towards crime, these are pro or anti-crime attitudes. What are you exposed to as a child, as a teenager? If everyone in your family is an offender, then it's probably a pro-crime. It's seen as being okay. He argued that we should be able to mathematically predict the likelihood of committing crime if we know these three things. The frequency, how often they are exposed to pro-crime attitudes, daily, weekly, hourly. Intensity, are they, maybe with their parents doing the criminal offence? Are they partaking? Is it happening in their household? And duration, so how long have they been exposed to these pro-crime attitudes? Okay, frequency, intensity, duration. These learned specific criminal acts, it may explain crime in certain communities, specific areas, location-wise, plus our reoffending rates. How might this learning take place though, and where? Is it a community thing? Is it a neighbourhood thing? Where is this taking place? And then one of these key ideas that he's put forward is that people actually learn more offending when they are in prison. So people who go to prison, he argues, it becomes a bit of a apprenticeship hub. You're in there with people who have done lots of different crimes, and you're learning from them based on that intensity of time with them, duration, frequency of exposure. You then leave and put those into practice. So it does explain why we have such a high reoffending rate. There's an AO2 here, so have a look at Gary in your booklet and how can we apply what we just learnt to Gary. And then we have AO1 to AO3. So if you have a question that was discussed research into, you would talk about all your key principles or your AO1, and then you'd bring in some studies. So Farrington, a really interesting longitudinal study with over 400 men, aged 8 to 50. Deprived working class inner city area of London, so it's not going to be the most generalisable. 41% of those men had been convicted of at least one offence between the ages of 10 and 50. 7% were chronic offenders. Okay, so I watched a bit of research methods there. How many is that out of the 411? From his longitudinal study, these key risk factors were important. Now remember, a risk factor doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen if you have one of these. Poor parenting, low school achievement, risk-taking, family criminality. They may predispose you, but they are just something to take into account. How we would evaluate that then? So longitudinal study is great. We can see change over time, but we tend to see quite a lot of people drop out and lose all the data. The sample were chosen, the 89 on the register of 6 state primary schools. So it's not the most representative sample in Farrington's study into differential association. Therefore, we have issues with applicability in general and reliability. So our conclusion, just what we know for AO1, that socialisation of males through inappropriate role models and dysfunctional systems of reward has led to criminal behaviour. So he's focused here predominantly on boys and their peer groups and who they associate with. So we should have some AO3 in the back of our mind. There's a gap field to have a look at as well, just to practice all your AO1. And then we delve into AO3. So a shift of focus. What this theory does is draw attention to environment, social circumstances, your peer group. He argues may be more to blame than dysfunctional people like personality types, what Eysenck was saying. So what it does do is it gives us a realistic area of focus. It takes away this issue of, if we think of atavistic form and genetics and neural explanations. This is looking at how environment could play quite a fundamental role. Secondly then, it does have wide reach, so it can look at crime in all sectors of society. He was a sociologist, Sutherland, and he was interested in environment and class. So it not only does it look at working class areas that might be more likely to be deprived, we can apply this to corporate crime. Middle class, they're wanting to fit in, be part of their friendship group, they're learning these new, embezzlement, fraud. So we can apply it to a whole host of crimes. But there is a real difficulty with testing how many times these people have been exposed to pro-crime attitudes, for example. I mean, you're only going to measure that through a questionnaire, which is probably likely that they're going to lie. So it doesn't really give us the scientific credibility that we would like, as interesting as it is. Okay, and then some research methods there just to finish.